World number 1 Aryna Sabalenka calls for major Grand Slam finals change. It is the worst moment. Aryna Sabalenka believes Grand Slam runners-up should not be forced to be involved in the post-match on-court ceremony, especially the interviews, as players are usually too emotional and just want to disappear from this planet. World number 1 Sabalenka has found herself on the unfortunate end of having to deliver a speech after losing a Grand Slam final on 3 occasions, as the first was at the 2023 US Open when she was beaten by Coco Gauff, while last year she lost the Australian Open final against Madison Keys before again losing against Gauff at Roland Garros. Her comments after her loss in the 2025 French Open final caused quite a stir, as she didn't give Gauff too much credit, saying it was mostly down to her mistakes. "I was just making unforced errors. I think she won the match not because she played incredible. Just because I made all of those mistakes, kind of like from easy balls," the Belarusian stated. During the post-match press conference, she also stated, "Conditions were terrible, and she simply was better in these conditions than me. I think it was the worst final I ever played," while she also claimed Iga Swiatek would have won the final had she played. A few months later, and she found herself on the right end of a Grand Slam final result as she defeated Amanda Anisimova at Flushing Meadows, and this time it was the American who had to fight back the tears to address spectators during the on-court interviews. WT News. WTA rankings. Sabalenka's lead grows, Gauff back at number 3, Bencic top 10, Kostyuk top 20, Ila cracks new highs. Prize money and points earned by Sabalenka, Kostyuk, Pegula, Machova at the Brisbane International. Sabalenka, though, feels there is no need to put the losing finalists through the post-match speech torture. "I don't understand, but they keep the runner-up on court for all of that ceremony because it is the worst moment," she told Australia's The Age. "Of course, I would love to go out there to thank my opponent, to thank my team, say thank you to everyone, and just leave the court. I don't want to be there. I need my time to cool down, to kind of switch off from what happened. The moment you step off court, you're completely exhausted, and there are no emotions left. You feel like you better just disappear from this planet." The Belarusian was favorite to win last January's Australian Open, and she started well as she won the opening set against Keys before slumping to a 3-6, 6-2, 5-7 defeat. She was also backed to win the title at Roland Garros, but never got going as she struggled with the on-court conditions, with Gauff winning 7-6, 7-5, 2-6, 4-6. "Honestly, looking back at last year, I think I've done everything right, except for my behavior at the French Open," she said. After a Grand Slam final loss, "In a day, everything is getting better, and you understand that, okay, if I keep working, keep improving myself, and getting better in every part of my life, I'll have that opportunity once again. Obviously, I didn't learn because the French Open was really close, and I behaved worse than I did in Australian Open. But it's all my journey, and it's all a learning process. I believe you have to take it like that." Want more from Tennis 365? Add us as a preferred source on Google to your favorites list for tennis coverage you can trust. The worst moment, Aryna Sabalenka, Grand Slam finals, and the call for change. In the tapestry of professional sport, few moments are as iconic and emotionally charged as the closing ceremony of a Grand Slam final. The glittering trophies, the applause of tens of thousands in the stadium and millions watching around the world, the congratulatory embraces, these images are cemented in our collective memory as the ultimate culmination of years of training and sacrifice. Yet beneath this pageantry lies a raw and less romantic truth, one poignantly expressed by world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka, the formidable Belarusian whose on-court power and competitive drive have made her one of the most compelling figures in tennis today. After a heartbreaking Grand Slam final defeat, Sabalenka didn't craft a carefully poised public soundbite. Instead, she offered a blunt, deeply human insight. "I don't understand, they keep the runner-up on court for all of that ceremony because it is the worst moment." A singular view from a top competitor. That statement, simple in language but loaded in implication, came following Sabalenka's loss in the 2026 Australian Open final to Madison Keys. Standing in the spotlight, she didn't mince words about the emotional toll of losing at the highest level. While she said she'd love to thank her opponent and team, she added that the immediate post-match formalities often feel overwhelming and emotionally exhausting, leaving players feeling like they better just disappear from this planet. This perspective is notable for several reasons. First, Sabalenka is not just any player, she's ranked #1 in the world and has accumulated multiple Grand Slam titles, including defending her crown at the US Open. Her insights come from deep familiarity with tennis' biggest stages. Second, her comments invite us to consider a side of professional sport that is seldom showcased: the emotional aftermath of loss. Fans often see champions holding trophies and celebrating. Rarely do they consider the crushed disappointment of the runner-up, asked, minutes after defeat, to compose themselves and speak publicly about the experience. What Sabalenka is really saying. Sabalenka's call isn't a plea to eliminate graciousness or sportsmanship. It's a challenge to reconsider when and how emotional transitions happen at the sport's climactic moments. In her own words, the requirement to stay on court for speeches and interviews forces athletes to engage publicly at the worst possible emotional moment, when they are exhausted, vulnerable, and often struggling to process the loss. Many athletes describe a post-loss period as shock, numbness, or even a desire to be alone. Sabalenka's candid framing, that she wants time to cool down or switch off, validates a side of athlete psychology that is rarely acknowledged in official policies. What she proposes, implicitly or explicitly, is a reimagining of tournament traditions, perhaps giving losing players the option to withdraw from the immediate on-court ceremony or to have a brief private cool-down before public obligations. In this sense, Sabalenka is not just critiquing tradition, she is questioning whether long-held ceremonial practices serve the human needs of players in high-pressure, emotionally charged moments. Tennis culture and emotional expression. Sabalenka's comments also expose a deeper tension in tennis and sports culture more broadly: the expectation that athletes should conceal or diplomatize their disappointment. In many high-stakes sports, competitors are expected to show gracious acceptance in defeat, publicly praising opponents while minimizing their own emotional reactions. But this cultural script may not reflect the internal reality of athletes. After her loss at the French Open, which she described as the worst final I ever played, Sabalenka was visibly upset, candid about the conditions and her performance, and later reflected on what went wrong. Such raw honesty is unusual and, in some forums, controversial, not because it's untrue, but because it jars against tennis' polished public image.